Hi, friends, Gene Valentino, and welcome back to another episode of Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. We cover issues from all walks of life, social, political, environmental. We try to get a grasp on what's going on so many levels. We have a macro level of environment where things are going on throughout our nation that affect our democracy and the future of our constitutional republic. But I heard Tip O'Neill, a Democrat, by the way, say a generation ago that all politics is local. And I would be remiss if I didn't introduce you to my good friend who happens to be in her third term as state representative here in the Florida Legislature, Michelle Salzman.
Hi.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We got a half hour to an hour. We're going to kick the tires. We're going to bounce folks on a few different issues, global in nature, and then some very specific right after this. Hello, fellow patriots. Gene Valentino here. As we approach our 250th anniversary, let's celebrate the spirit that made this nation the greatest country on earth. I'm so proud to offer you our limited edition 1776 to 2026 commemorative hats, a bold reminder of freedom, faith, and the American dream. Whether you're at a rally or on a golf course or just showing your pride every day, this hat says it all. Grab yours today at genevalentino.com and let freedom ring. Welcome back. Michelle is in several committees in the House of Representatives in her third term, which is about 5.5 years now, and she will be coming up for an August primary election, I think, in August of 2026, where she will be then into her fourth term, which would be 8 years, and that's the term limit here in the United States, here in Florida.
That's right.
And
I like term limits.
You do like term limits?
I love term limits. We need them everywhere.
You might find that to be a point of contention amongst some bureaucrats who wish they could continue their 40 years of service.
Amongst my peers, even. When I filed the bill the first time to create term limits against our local utility authority, you thought I was trying to legalize abortion. It was crazy. Republicans were just so mad. You can't term limit me and this and that. And I'm like, I thought you were a constitutional conservative, but you believe that we're here for the people and not for the power. And I got that bill passed eventually. And then the next thing we did was term limits on school board members. You'd have thought once again that we were legalizing abortion or raising taxes. People freaked out. And then I passed the bill to do term limits against county commissioners, but it didn't pass the Senate. It only passed the House. And even through that process, we had local commissioners that swore they supported term limits. And the moment that bill was filed, oh, well, no, I really meant, no, you can't do this to me. And I'm just like, okay.
As a former county commissioner for 2 terms myself, I can honestly tell you, I was not so hot about term limits when I was in.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, that was one of my biggest mistakes. Had I had a chance to influence state representatives like yourself, I would have been much more forthright in making sure the state executed a statute of law to enforce term limits, whether it's a chartered government county or a home rule county. Michelle, I think the source of many of our problems, as you know, I ran for Congress, and when I did, I signed a document on term limits saying that we needed term limits. I think the problems go away, do they not?
Well, I think it shifts the power a little bit back to the people and back to the donors. It's hard. Basically, what happens is you build a relationship, a rapport with the people that are in office. So once you've given them money, you meet with them, you give them money, you meet with them, you give them money, you meet with them. Eventually, you're building a real relationship. And sometimes those relationships create bigger relationships. Like they see that there's an ability to get a big project that would take 10 years across the finish line. If I have you there for 10 years to vote yes. So if there was 8-year term limits, that wouldn't work for me. So the longer you're in office, the more relationships you build. And a lot of times you just lean on those. Like I meet somebody, I see they're an expert in something, I call them because they're the expert when that comes down the pipeline. I chair currently the Housing, Agriculture, and Tourism Committee. That is all of the major dollars and tourism, I did say that. So every major income for Florida, that's my committee. I chair that committee. So all of that comes through me. So imagine if I was chair of that committee for 15, 20 years, how many developers might be able to just convince me because of that relationship and that access that something's a good idea, as opposed to having to reinvent and prove yourself every 8 years. So people just get lazy. I'm not saying that everybody is, but it's just, we're humans, it's nature. So I think term limits just requires, it requires us to put that work into things and make us more conscious about the decisions that we make for the people.
I think the people just want accountability
They
and
do.
transparency. And it's been alleged that term limits doesn't necessarily encourage that to happen.
I would say you're right. You hit the nail on the head, the transparency component, because you're not going to, if you at public records request me for text messages or emails, you're not going to find all of that. I see that guy all the time because he's just somebody I built a relationship. We'll go have lunch together, talk about things, and nobody gets to see those conversations. They only see the things that they can request. If they were to try to get, the sunshine law here in Florida, we can access that. But transparency, I think that's a very valid point. That's a good way to just put a pin on that.
State legislature recently had several bills you were behind. You were very busy this first half of 2026. And what was the one on citizenship and voter rights that the Florida House of Representatives passed, had to do with accountability of who a citizen is and who it is not? Then there was an underwriting criteria or a requirement that allowed a voter to vote in Florida. What happened?
Well, we've been reevaluating our election laws for many years. Since I've been in the legislature for almost 6 years now, the past, I think, 3 or 4 years, we've done election bills. I did the election bill a couple of years ago. And just every year we find loopholes that people are utilizing to buck the system and to just circumvent this constitutional republic that you mentioned. Honing down on what is an identification card, how do you register to vote, how often you have to, ask to get that mail-in ballot. There's a lot of things out there, and we have some of the best system in America here in Florida. We really do set the standard. Because we require a lot of things. You can't use a student ID anymore. Okay. You were able to use a student ID to register to vote up until this current law that we just passed. And it also requires, if you've never proven what your name is, it requires you to do that. And I had a lot of people coming at me, women's rights and da-da-da. And I'm like, what's the woman's right? Well, I have to supply my marriage certificate. And what kind of world is that? I said, don't you have to do that when you buy a house?
Like, get a mortgage.
I mean, this is the most incredible power that a citizen of America has, this power to vote. And if it is inconvenient for you to exercise that right, maybe you don't deserve that right. I mean,
tell me, you like the job?
I do not. I don't like being in politics. I like helping people. And so I just avoid the political banter. I just focus on the person, not the policy, specifically like the right to vote, like that law. I had a lot of people coming after me, a lot of women saying, how can you vote for this? This is horrible. And I'm like, listen, stop listening to sound bites that you hear from the League of Women Voters or from CNN or whatever, and just focus on the facts. Do you want to protect your constitutional right, or is it just not that big of a deal to you?
Well, that begs the question, what do you think the biggest misgiving is amongst your opponents? What is it they've got wrong and don't understand about you?
I don't know. I think my opponents are just socialists and they'll never agree. I don't believe in socialism.
Well, your opponents, I think, are most Americans' opponents. I would hope so anyways.
Yeah.
That begs a question. We see a lot of blue states and blue cities with a major migration coming to Florida, Tennessee, Texas. I can name 6 more. And why are they coming?
Well, they see the freedom. They see what we have.
Yeah.
We are thriving. We have no state tax. We have a lot
You're
of
ahead of a
opportunity.
balanced budget?
Well, that is right. We balance our budget. It's part of our Constitution. It's the only thing we're required to do every year is to balance our budget. And we're really proud of that here in Florida. We do a really good job. Every year since I've been elected, we've reduced taxes every single year. So we're going the other way. While now local governments is another conversation. You know, a lot of counties and school districts and things, they're increasing their local taxes, which we're working on ways to combat that. But we recognize that lower taxes.
Well, when
are
you
good.
cut taxes from your point of view at the state level, does it mean that the county or the county agencies that are standing on their own, like a water and sewer utility authority, these entities at what I'd call the local level, the non-state level, find themselves in need of having to increase their fees because you're finding ways of cutting it?
Oh, that's baloney.
Okay.
That's the biggest hawk of poo-poo I've heard.
All right,
First
come
of
on.
all, the utility authorities don't get any money from us. They do all of that themselves. They're their own taxing authority.
So they're not
You don't-
getting any supplemental
Sometimes they
funding?
apply for special projects through the Department of Transportation or the water management authorities or whatever, but those are projects like infrastructure, such as like sewage treatment, things like that. And we haven't decreased any of the money in that. What we decrease money in, basically, for example, we do a tax break on ammo and guns. So during a certain week of the year, you don't have to worry about paying taxes. It's the best time to go buy that beautiful rifle and you know, the scope and all those little pieces, maybe stock up on ammo for hunting season. That's the type of stuff. We don't have tax on diapers. We don't have tax on feminine products. We don't have tax on baby formula. So we had that 5 years ago. So when we say we eliminate tax or reduce taxes, a lot of these taxes are for things that everyday Floridians would go do. We reduced sales tax in one of our proposals. And so that touches the state agencies. And what we've done is we've evaluated how many employees each department has. And we say, well, you haven't filled this billet in 5 years. You clearly don't need the money for that. So we're going to take that out of the budget because you're not filling that position. So we're not taking away from things that are being utilized currently. We're looking at where we have some issues that we don't really need to be funding, or maybe, you know, we've created better infrastructure in the technology component so we don't require all of the people on the back end. So because we can remove those people, we save money. So we're not taking money out of local government's hands.
So if the state, first of all, we don't have an income tax for individuals. And if I think it's Governor DeSantis is thinking about the removal of the property tax in some degree at the local level. I love it. I love the concept that he's going in that direction. But I think the rub is, especially in your agency, the budget and finance, to me would be, we still got to balance the books. We still got to pay our bills. So if the counties remove the property tax at the local levels, how much more would they be expecting from the state to supplement that?
Right. And, you know, there have been a variety of estimates. You know, every organization out there has created their own version of what it would do to their communities or to Florida as a whole. So I won't speak to the details of it. I can tell you that the Florida House passed the bill on the House floor. We passed the resolution. We did it. The citizens of Florida said, we want lower property taxes or we want property taxes eliminated. And we were the only body that acted on it. We passed that resolution in the House.
Never went to the Senate.
The Senate never picked it up. And the governor has not released a plan on property tax reduction or elimination. So because he has not given an idea of his own, the Senate hasn't acted on it. But I can tell you the Florida House passed the most extreme version. We said we will eliminate it altogether.
Really?
And yes, we did. In the House. And we did that because we wanted to make sure that we sent a message to all Floridians to include the cabinet, to include our, you know, the chamber across the hall, the Senate. Whatever you decide, we're going to support. whatever anybody can agree on. If we say we're only going to do homestead exemptions, then we'll just eliminate property tax on your homestead. If we say we're only going to do 65 and over, then we will agree to that too. So basically, we went as far as you could go in the House and the chamber because we wanted to make sure people knew you guys just decide what you want to do. We're okay with any of it.
Is the Senate stepping back from it in any way?
The Senate hasn't really made a proposal or agreed to do anything. The Senate's been very silent on this conversation. Individually, senators will comment on it, but as a body, they haven't made a position. And they did say that they were waiting on the governor's recommendations. And so the governor hasn't done that to this day. He might be working on it now, but we have been told that we should be doing a special session on property taxes at some point. So we'll see if we're called back to Tallahassee to do that. But as for now, as it stands, there will not be anything on the ballot because the Senate and the governor have not done anything. It's just been the Florida House.
Folks, we're talking with Michelle Salzman, State Representative, District 1 Republican, is running for her 4th term. And that's the term limit in Florida, 4 terms, 8 years. Let me push the issue a little bit further. I suspect, and this is me talking, I suspect the governor will be in a position of having, in his attempt to try to eliminate property taxes altogether. What a concept. I mean, we're only left with one major revenue source, and that would be sales tax.
That's right.
Revenue or fee, use of fee tax.
Yep.
And if that's the only one that remains, and we're between 6.5% and 7.5% in most counties around the state, what does that number go to? 10%?
Yeah. So the counties would be doing their own. And that's part of where we ran into the big issue as we were evaluating what did we want to do in the House. We created a special committee on property taxes. We did a lot of meetings, not just with that special committee, but with the members as a whole, as we just communicated with one another what the concerns were of first responders, the concerns of the local citizens, things like that. We recognize that while we might eliminate the taxes, what in that referendum, what in that resolution that we'd be putting on the ballot would eliminate the local government's ability to just go in and say, we're just going to do a 10% flat tax in the county, or 10% tax in the city. Or another issue that we were looking at, they could circumvent it as a whole and just carve out like firefighters from the police here locally. The firefighters are somehow encompassed into the police budget, and they could easily just rewrite their local municipalities constitution or whatever their governing document is and say, you know what, no longer that. And now they're not funding that at all.
So as you, it's not the intent of what what the House of Representatives decided on to allow individual counties to circumvent or manipulate that flat fee if it goes to a sales and use tax.
Yep.
To bastardize the system in a disproportionate way.
Yeah.
So it would have to be pro rata or pari passu across the board in all 67 counties.
That's the thing. Like, how do you do that? So I think that's where the issue lies as you want to create meaningful legislation. How do you do that? We have such a unique state. It's massive in size, third largest economy in America, 14th largest in the world, balance our budget every year. You have we have 14 counties that one representative represents that has only 180,000 people in it. And then you have one county that'll have 1 million people in it. Yeah. So how do you navigate that landscape when you talk about what you can and can't do locally as far as taxes are concerned? So there's a lot of intricacies there, and how do you manage that, which is why the House just said, look, we'll just do whatever y'all decide. You guys, y'all figure it out. Because initially we did have some plans that were very specific, only homestead, only 65 or older, this or that. And people were just nitpicking all of it. We said, you know what, we'll just get rid of all of it and let y'all figure it out.
Yeah. What I find interesting is that there is a transition going on so many levels. I'm going to stay on your accomplishments for a minute. With you in the House of Representatives, then I'd like to pivot some other good points to talk about before we're done. You also put up term limits for a water sewer district here I was going to say Escambia County. It's the region.
Yeah. I did.
And how do you maintain friends when you're cutting their ability?
Well, there's a couple that haven't talked to me since.
Yeah.
But, I didn't run to make friends. I ran to represent people. And I know that over 80% of my constituents, over 80% of Floridians, and over 80% of Americans want term limits on all constitutional officers.
That is absolutely true.
They just want it. And it's not my job to mansplain to my people that I was elected to represent what they want or don't want or why they need something. It's my job to do what they tell me to do. And that's not hard. If you just listen to the people, do what the people say. It doesn't matter who is your friend or who you upset, because I didn't go there to make friends. I went there to be effective. I need to be an effective lawmaker for the people, and I have delivered results resoundingly year after year. And
yeah, I do that? I was looking at the bills. You're on at least 25 bills since the first of the year that you either sponsored or co-sponsored. Mm-hmm. And some of them are rather interesting. The one that stands out, though, is the Voters' Rights Act. We had the Supreme Court of the United States vote on the constitutionality of what was going on in Virginia. And it's amazing to see. And now then Louisiana. And the redistricting concept mm-hmm. is, to me, a one man, one woman, one vote. What's the problem, Democrats? I don't see where that's all they wanted to do. Do you sense that the Democrats in the Florida State Legislature, that the door is swinging back the other way on this issue?
Yeah.
That they weren't too hot about talking about before, and now they want to jump on?
It's interesting because I was a part of the redistricting. It's reapportionment is what it's called by the Constitution. And that's the second thing. There's only two things that we're constitutionally required to do as state lawmakers, House and Senate: balance the budget every year, and every 10 years, follow the census and reevaluate by the districts. I was a part of the redistricting, congressional redistricting committee last time. And I remember very clearly when we were doing the maps, the Democrats were like, these maps suck. And I was new to the legislature, gerrymandering and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you want to talk about that? I'm the only district in Florida that has a Supreme Court required minority district. We have a minority district required by the Florida Supreme Court in county commission and in school board. And so that is gerrymandering. That is, that's not representative.
Well, that was legislation from the bench.
Yes, it was.
A court order. Michelle, I'm so glad to hear you bring it up. I don't think too many people realize it. You can't say it often, and I commend you for bringing it up. But you're talking about a district, the 5 districts in Escambia County. Mm-hmm. Is this the only district that this has occurred in?
The only one in Florida. We are so unique. We had a bill a few years ago, and Blaise Ngolia, now the CFO, good friend of mine, he was in the House, and it was going to do something to us. And one of the county commissioners called and said, we got to fix this. This isn't us. And so I called Blaise and I said, Blaise, we got to fix this. He said, Michelle, I already fixed it. And I called him. I said, he said he already fixed it. And he said, no, we don't apply. We have. And so then he explains it to me. I had no idea.
Specialized districts.
So that means that all of the law that we pass for county commission in any capacity, we have to have a special mention if we want to be affiliated because of the way that we district.
Just in Escambia?
Just in Escambia County, out of 67 counties in the state of Florida, we are the only one like that.
Well, how did it break off and become unique?
Because we had the Supreme Court ruling a long time ago that said that we have to have a seat that represents minorities.
If I recall, it was a McMillan.
That's right.
The McMillan case.
That's
right. And look, none of us want racism or unjust practices in the right to access, the right to free speech, the right to use, and the right to vote. And what I think you're talking about is that in Escambia County, the court said there will be one district for minorities.
Yeah.
Well, when I was commissioner, I had minorities in my district. What? So they don't qualify I think they're disadvantaged because they're not in the minority district.
I mean, the argument a long time ago was they all lived in one spot. This was a long time ago. And, everybody's moved around. Everything's different now. And that ruling still stands. And we thought that we were going to be able to get a really solid ruling from the recent ruling, but it turns out it did not include that specific chapter that the Supreme Court ruled on. So we will maintain that minority district here in Escambia County. But the Democrats, I was like, are we doing something wrong? Like, do you think maybe we're not being nice? Because they were just so adamant that we weren't, it's going to be challenged and overturned. And the governor's like, we got this, it won't. And sure enough, we didn't have a single issue with our state or our congressional maps at all, not one issue because they challenged all of them. So I have faith that what we did this past session a couple weeks ago will stand through the Supreme Court. I don't think it's going to have an issue at all. We've worked really hard to create good maps that are indicative of the population.
Fairness between. When I was a commissioner, I remember I was directed by the county attorney to look at two things: make sure the population was pari passu, equal amongst the different. And so the line and the borders moved to make sure that each of the 5 districts had the same number of people.
Right.
The second issue, which was not talked about as much, was an attempt to, if you had 70% Republican registration and 20% Democrat and 10% more was unaffiliated, that you would attempt to move the district into the same ratio as the county.
So that is unconstitutional. So you can't draw lines based off of party. You can draw lines based off of county lines, city lines, tax brackets, maybe major highways, or how you get to and from. Like if you have 2 communities that are separated by a major lake, and there's a bridge and that they're the same community, like I live here, but I work here, I work here, but I live here, we need to try to include them in whatever that district is. So there are a lot of things that we look at. Geography based is the main thing, how it would just make sense. When we were doing the state maps, I was requested, my own input, because that was one of the things we were doing. And they asked me, and I said, I would prefer my district stay as close to the same as possible. If you pull, because there were some maps that had me pulling in the city or had me going to the coastline, and you don't want to mix the district with different tax revenues or sources if you don't have to. The coastline has a different taxing, the city has their own taxing, they have their own government, they have another mayor, it's a whole thing. So if I could avoid that, then I was keeping a really good, clean map for my constituents. I want to represent as like-minded as possible.
Yeah. Now, and just for clarification, so Michelle is state representative in District 1 for state legislature, but that includes 2 counties of the Panhandle.
I only have Escambia County. Santa Rosa changed. It did change. It did change. Before me, it was Santa Rosa and Escambia. Then it changed to Escambia. That was another option. Somebody said, just go back to Santa Rosa and Escambia and grab the top end of the state, and then you'll have all the same people that won't give you any trouble.
Well, it's population based.
It is, and it would be. But my issue was you'd be splitting the counties, and I really felt like we needed to keep it as clean cut as possible. Although the population in the north end of the Panhandle, they're all similar. They're all farmers, right? So I just have all farmers. And I thought that was good, but I really didn't feel like that was appropriate because it would make the district so long, which would mean I would require additional staff and it would cost the state more money to manage that office. So I just felt like it would be best not to increase the cost to maintain the government when I can just keep the map similar. I'm district number 1. Now, when you get down to district, 30 through 80, they're like all mixed in together. You move one street over and you've got issues, especially in Miami. But for me, it was really just keep me here because I'm the first one. I start the map. I'm like, just leave mine alone and y'all just work your way down the state. But
what's your hot accomplishment? What makes you happy when you talk about what you did this week or this month?
I think the most important thing is just focusing on what the constituents want. We have an affordability crisis in the whole world right now. The war in Iran is real. It's creating a real problem for everybody. Yet we still have some of the lowest gas prices in the world, even though the gas is high for us, right? So focusing on that, I have requested that we do a temporary gas tax relief from the state. That is going to be in the tax package request that's coming up tomorrow. We gavel in and we'll start focusing on that. Anything to eliminate or reduce costs for my constituents, I've been advocating for, and I'm really proud of that advocacy because I see that it's making progress. Maintaining that safety and the infrastructure component. The basics of government are so important. People want to get off on these tangents and talk about all these crazy things, but at the end of the day, can you afford the bread? Can you get across the street? I mean, your road was blocked on the way here. I'm like, what is happening?
That's
Why am I
right.
sitting here?
And it's 4 years overdue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So focusing on that, I'm really those are hot topics. We always hit the big stuff in session. We've already hit, like you said, we fixed some more in the voting stuff. So now you have to prove that your last name is your last name. Nothing wrong with that. Can't use all these made up ID cards from all over the place. It needs to be a state issued ID from a state office, which is a reasonable expectation. So
do you see the Democrats getting, we the citizens watch from home what's on the news and what's hot and what's not. And I get a sense of vitriol on the Democrat side, unlike anything I've ever seen. Said differently, Michelle, I don't see it from the Republicans. Oh, there's some wayward Republicans. We don't have a perfect party either. But I'm just saying that it seems that the level of hate and discontent
mhm.
on the Democrat side has transcended to action, or I would say
100%.
actionable words
No, you're right.
like assassination attempts.
Oh, it's mind blowing. And then they tell each other that it's fake, and
Do you
they
see it
believe
at the
that.
state level?
No, at the state level, it's different. I have a lot of colleagues that I would rather not ever have to lay eyes on because I just feel like they're,
They're inflammatory.
anybody that supports Palestine or, there's some stuff, I am a Southern Baptist. That is first. I wake up, I'm God first, right? So if you don't support my God, we're done here. Like, just keep walking.
Well, so
that's
does our
number one.
Constitution.
So, and they forget that because there's a whole movement to bring socialism and communism and stuff. And they're like, this is going to be great. And then you talk about, but what about, let me show you what happened in Cuba. But that's not our country because we don't allow it. I really feel like what happened in the information age is a lot of people that can't think for themselves. Now they have access to all of these things and they think that that's real because they don't have true problem solving skills or they don't understand how to think for themselves. So they believe those things to be true.
So perfect segue on education. The under 16 crowd, the Gen Zers. And I'm not sure they understand what the Constitution is or have even been trained in the Declaration of Independence.
100%.
The Gettysburg Address.
Right.
The Federalist Papers and the Constitution itself. What is it with the educational system that you fund or partially involved in funding at the state that is remiss in teaching the youth before they even get to high school,
right?
A civics class, a social studies class,
sure,
to include those items.
We already did it. I'll tell you what we did.
Go for it.
About 5 years ago, we got in the legislature, 6 years ago-ish. About 5 years ago, we had real conversation. We went around the state, really focused on what in the world are we doing wrong? How does nobody know the preamble to the Constitution? How does nobody understand what the Gettysburg Address is? Or that we have 3 branches of government? Or, any of that stuff. And we realized that through the years, they had been, people know that. So they just started removing it from their curriculum across the state, across the nation, but in our state specifically. And so what we decided to do was we mandated civics education, but we went a step further and the legislature created that education. We created all of the rubric that's required and the testing that's required. We have told them what they need to know. So I, as a lawmaker and the one that co-sponsored that bill, go around the state and I meet with little kids and we have these little civics books that we give out for free. The legislature provides them and we teach them. Who's the governor? What branch of government does this? How am I elected? What year do you elect people? What's the Constitution? What's the basis of your rights? What's a responsibility? We do that now. Now, this is new. It's like 3 years in the running, but it is something we identified as a key problem. Another thing that we identified that we mandated was financial literacy, because you have a lot of debt. You have a lot of people that don't know how to spend money. So now they're also required back to the basics. I mean, these are things that were being taught and then just kind of faded out into the night, or teachers, socialists, or people that didn't agree with America, but were still here teaching, were teaching their own version of civics, right? So then now you've got kids that are confused. So by creating not only the requirement of teaching these things, but also exactly what you have to teach them and how, that is going to control this narrative. So I think our younger will be good, but maybe not the ones in between.
Continuing, yeah, I get you. We have a gap now coming through the high school system.
Yes, we will.
But the younger folks, like you just mentioned, is there not a penalty that you can impose through an act of law, statute of law, in addition to the criteria you just described, that says to the teacher, I don't care what union you're in, you cannot go out on a limb and be teaching stuff outside this scope?
They get terminated.
Said differently, socialistic or Marxist.
Yes. Socialism is illegal in Florida. You are not. We made that illegal 2 years ago. You are not allowed to teach that socialism is good.
I thought you were silent on your accomplishments. And look at what she's talking. Folks, we're with Michelle Salzman, District 1. Now, here's a good example. When I get to hear you talk about all these great things you've done, I'm not sure I like that term limit anymore. I don't want to see you leaving in 2 years. My words. I mean, people that are good maybe need a way to stay in government to make things happen. People who abuse the system, milk it. I think the answer is find your good replacement. Yes. Once you term out,
and
right?
Then also, if you are that good, then there'll be something else for you to do. There's a way that you can continue your impact, whether it be Senate or Congress or, just fill in the blank. There's so many other opportunities out there. So
since you brought it up, thought about governor?
Not governor. I have been mentioned in the lieutenant governor list, but not governor itself. I think that's way beyond my thought.
Term.
Yeah.
Let's get through another good term.
100%. But we did make socialism illegal. We've done a lot in the state of Florida over the past 5 years, just leaps and bounds. I mean, when I got elected, it was legal to have an abortion. Now it's not. When I got elected, you couldn't have a gun on campus. Now you can. When I got elected, you couldn't. You had to pay taxes on your guns. When I got elected, when you bought ammo and firearms, you were put in a database. I don't even know if citizens knew that was happening, because the credit card companies were putting us in databases. 3 or 4 years ago, illegal. Now they can't put Floridians in databases. They'll have to do it in other states. So there's a lot of things that we've accomplished that, things that you were like, is that really happening? There's no way that's happening. Yeah. What about teaching kids that it was okay to be a boy if you were a girl in kindergarten? Who would have thought that was actually happening? They were doing that in South Florida and Central Florida.
Tampons in men's bathrooms?
100%. So we made all of that stuff illegal.
Just waltz up in Minnesota.
No, there are some there. We have Democrats all over, but we fixed it. So now it's illegal. It's against the law. You will lose your license to teach if you do any of those things that we've talked about. So we're working on it. One step at a time.
What is your biggest disappointment?
Oh, wow.
You've been in 3, 4, 5.5 years.
Yeah.
And you've seen a shift. You've seen a transition in the complexion of the House of Representatives.
I think my biggest disappointment is the fact that we as Republicans in the state of Florida, which we lead the nation, we know that. We know that when we do something, everybody's watching. And I serve on the executive board for the Republican Party of Florida. I'm a delegate for the president. I have a lot of responsibility external to just being the lawmaker. So I have access to a lot of information. I do a lot of stuff for the party as a whole, good friends with the chair, Joe Gruters. But my point is, years ago, when we were looking at the political landscape of Florida, and we were a purple state, and we said we want to swing it red, we worked really hard to do that, and we still work very hard to continue that momentum. But one thing that happens when you do that is you become so big, a
Yeah.
supermajority, that you start eating your own. And we said for years, we're not going to be like those Democrats and do all that eating our own. Like they're the reason they were their own demise, because they start eating each other up. And then look at what's happening in the governor race right now. I mean, Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins is a very good friend of mine, and he's out there with this million-page thing against Byron Donalds just to smear his name so people know about him. And the problem is things like that aren't going to hurt the primary. Byron's going to win by a landslide. Mark my words, I'm telling you. And when Byron wins by a landslide, now the Democrats are going to have that information to use against him and the general. So when we fight each other publicly, when we go after each other publicly and say, you're not this, or look what you did, or whatever, we're not hurting each other per se. We're hurting the party as a whole. And the mission of the party is to stay unified. The mission
Yeah.
of the party is to march in the same direction. And we don't do that when we get too many
Not
of
be
us.
denied your right for self-expression and to elicit your own opinion.
Right.
You can deliberate or collaborate with each other with differences of opinion. That doesn't mean you're out for each other's throats.
Right, exactly. And there's a lot of that happening across the state, not necessarily
Across the nation.
Yeah, and in the state, I use the governor's race only because everybody can relate to that. If you live in Massachusetts, you've probably seen some of the infighting between the governor candidates here in Florida. But that happens at every level. It starts at the Republican executive committees, those tiny little meetings in every county, and the little clubs, the Republican clubs, and the Liberty Caucus, and the John Birch Society, and the Tea Party, and all the different types of conservatives that we are, the MAGA movement. So how do you navigate that where you're not attacking one another in a way that's so visceral that it gives the Democrats ammunition and we become weak ourselves? If we spend so much money on a primary, then we can't focus on what really matters, and it's the general. A Republican should be a Republican, whether you believe this or that. You should fall in that line of a constitutional conservative, you would think, right?
I remember the days, I date myself, when the guy by the name of Ronald Reagan had a visitor at his bedside after he had been an attempted assassination, and his name was Tip O'Neill, Speaker of the House of Representatives of the United States Congress. Tip O'Neill, a strong Democrat, and Ronald Reagan, a strong Republican, were good buddies. They'd have a scotch together. They'd kibitz over issues and chat things, but they never. They had gentlemanly fights on the issues, but it never became so hostile.
Right, and it is. That's what
I
it is
see
now.
Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, formerly Maxine Waters, and Nancy Pelosi, the squad coming up the ranks with AOC.
Yep.
And I could name 10 more. Look what Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell have been caught doing. Look at the mess with the conspiracy on the Hunter Biden laptop.
100%.
And 51 of those folks, including John Brennan, head of the CIA, and James Clapper, NSA, signing a document saying it was legitimate, that in fact Donald Trump was conspiring against America with the Russians. And it all proved not to be true.
Crazy, isn't it? Political warfare. It's political
warfare. Do you
warfare.
see anything going that far at the state level?
I do see stuff like that happening, yes. I do.
Can you, here's the real challenge. We're running out of time. Do you see a mechanism by which a legislator can pass legislation to punish a legislator for wrongdoing, which is so vile, which is actionable?
Yeah.
When people threaten to take other people's life, do you need to move a mountain? I mean, how many times in our lifetime are we going to see a Donald Trump?
Well, for us in the legislature, I mean, my life was threatened a couple of years ago. The governor gave me his detail. I was riding in 3 of those black SUVs. You didn't know which one I was in, and they were all fully loaded with tons of ARs and shotguns ready to go, and all of that because I stood strong for Israel, and I had a lady in the chamber she was pro-Palestine, and she believed Israel wasn't real or legitimate, and they needed to go, and so she does this video. It goes viral, and then now my life is on the line. Like literally, I couldn't leave my home for weeks, and there was no recourse. So in our state, the Constitution guides all of our legislature as well, all of our branches of government, just like every state. And the only way to change real action would be a constitutional amendment,
At the state level?
At the state level, yeah. And all of those things require it to go on the ballot, whether it be by referendum or by the legislature, joint resolution in the legislature. And so that has come up a lot of times. We did recently this year, we passed legislation in that voting thing, the bill that you keep referring to in there. So once it gets enacted, I don't know if it'll start this year, but now if you are a gubernatorial candidate, you will get the security of the governor, because we've had threats against our gubernatorial candidates as well as the governor himself. So there are some things that we can manipulate. The Speaker of the House holds a lot of power. Like whenever I had the death threats against me, it was started by another House member. It was all her fault, and they could all tie it right back to her, but it was not a crime.
Was she charged?
No, because it wasn't a crime. And FDLE was like, I wish I could charge her. And Interpol was like, we can't charge her.
Excuse me. You mean saying something actionable that threatens another person's life is not a crime?
Correct. Because you have to it's like a chain of evidence. It's the same thing. You have to be able to say that what she said, you can actually show that that's what led to the death threats at my house or the pipe bombs being all the different things. And because it's so convoluted in the dark web and all that, there was no way to tie. We did get a couple of people went to prison for it. We had some felony charges in New York and others. So some people went to prison, but we all know that it started from that Representative Angie Nixon, who was good friends with Ilhan or whatever that.
Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, her. They're actually very close. She did a fundraiser with Omar as soon as she publicized my thing and I was under lockdown. They did a fundraiser together, excited because they silenced the pro-Israel person in Pensacola, which they didn't silence me. They just, this was like 2 weeks before Marco Rubio made the statements in the hallway where he was like, they all should die. That's what I said. I said they all should die, and she spun my words into other things. But anyway,
you have taken on. If you want to know who a good politician is, he or she is the person that's catching the angst of the other side and is probably being torn apart after hours. Michelle Salzman, in addition to being a good friend of mine, has been very, very successful in her 3 terms of office, going for her 4th term now. And I must say, I'm pleasantly surprised at how much you've done. I've read all the stuff on you, but I haven't connected all the dots. I didn't realize just how influential you were with certain things. And to make the point, if you and the governor are able to create an economic plan that creates incentives and jobs for this for this state, that offsets the removal of the tax.
Mm-hmm.
Because the elimination of the property tax means the other source of revenue's got to be more sales and more use of things, if that's the source of our revenue.
Right.
Is going to be, to me, one of the biggest accomplishments in this nation.
Yes. Well, that's why Ron DeSantis wanted it. That's why when he found out we were doing the sales tax thing, he was like, sales tax, y'all need to do property tax. Then he started talking about it, and then people were like, ooh. And then he's like, oh, wait, they want that? Okay, let's talk about it. So then he goes to all the counties in Florida, and he says, do you want to remove property taxes? So he gets this whole uproar. He knew it, and he went on the news many times, and he said, we will be the first state in America, and did it, So he knew that. That was part of his platform. He saw that it was just so exciting and that people were hungry for that.
Yeah.
And he does what the people want. He goes into office, based off of a platform, and he acts on that platform. He is very much one of those people. He doesn't falter from that. If this is what you elected him to do, that's what he does. And he gets mad when other people are elected to do it and they don't want to do it too. Hence some of the infighting that happened.
Well, infighting even within the party is not a dirty word. What you're doing is what our forefathers intended. You're scrubbing the issue to ensure we come to the right decision.
100%.
The Democrats don't.
Right.
Get in line, follow the marching orders from former head Pelosi, and vote this way.
Yep.
Your bill's on hold. You're going to handle what we tell you in Congress first.
It's interesting because most of the time they don't even know what's in the bills.
Well, she said that. Just vote it in, and then we'll look at it later.
Yeah, they don't even know what they're supporting.
Yeah.
They have no idea what they're supporting. And meanwhile, we're over here busting our tails trying to make sure that we provide meaningful impact, because we know that Floridians and Americans, whether it's at the national or state level, we know that we need to do certain things. We have gotten out of control as a nation as spending is concerned, government size is concerned. We've lost our way. We need to focus on safety, supporting law enforcement, supporting firefighters, all the basic things, education, school choice. I mean, school choice wasn't a thing until I got in office. It was allowed. We created in Byron Donalds' era when he was in the legislature. He was the one that created the ability. So if your school district wanted to do school choice, they could. So he gave them permission. Whereas we, a few years ago, mandated that everyone not only had permission, but had access to do that. And then the next year we said, and now we're going to give you the money for it. So now when you move your child out of a public school and you want to homeschool them or you want to send them to a private school, you get the money that child was supposed to get.
You're talking about a rebate off the tax bill we're paying on?
Yes.
For education.
Base student allocation. So every student costs around $15,000 a year to educate. If you pull your kid out of public school and you send them anywhere else, you get the check. Money follows the student, period. First state in the nation to do it. It's super great. So basically,
including charter school.
100%, wherever you send them.
Homeschool?
Well, absolutely. You can get the check yourself. That was 2 years ago. We said, you know what? Homeschoolers got left out. Let's get the money to the parent.
Folks, we're with Michelle Salzman. As informed as I think I am on many topics, I've been focusing with Newsmax and other national outlets on the national issues. And Michelle's a refresher and a reminder of some of the things that are going on. All politics is local. In fact, the source of our good government is local.
That's right.
And you have given me so much encouragement today on the pivot that's going on at the state level. Oh, Florida's just fine. Oh, no. I'm listening to 4 or 5 different things you've brought up in this last hour that are, I think, unprecedented.
Yes, they are, actually. They really are. We just passed also, was my bill, again, the safety bill, the School Safety Act, which said that all higher level education systems in the state of Florida, now you're allowed to have guardians, which means we'll have guns on campuses. That was a big push, but also reunification plans. How do you respond to a shooter or a bomb threat or whatever? When we had that issue at FSU a couple of years ago, or a little over a year ago, we said, wait a minute, this has happened again. We've got to fix this. So I looked all over the United States, and not a single state in the nation had a statewide plan. What do we do to keep our faculty and our staff and our children safe on their university systems? And school shooters know universities are very vulnerable. So now we're requiring locks on doors and perimeters. And it's a lot in that bill. It's like 80 pages. But the point is nothing like it in the nation. That's something else that's unprecedented. But a lot of the stuff that we've done in Florida has never been done across the nation before. That's why I said we know that everybody's watching us when we do things, which is another reason why we're so calculated in how we get it done.
It's amazing how much has changed. And I cease to be amazed with the number of blue states and the exits of people coming out of blue states and blue cities and blue states that are making their way to Tennessee, Florida, Texas, and I named 3 or 4 more, also the Sunbelt, southern states. I see a transformation going on. The problem is what they did to themselves up there, which Donald Trump tried to help them with, and they scoffed at his offer for help, including ICE right now.
That's nice now.
It's nice now.
It's nice now? I thought that was such a good mail. I was like, oh, that's funny.
Ice is nice.
National. Nice. Ice is nice. I saw that. I was like, and they even changed the logo and everything. They're so fast.
It's also pretty nice to have you with me today.
Oh, it's nice to be here, Gene.
Michelle has been a true advocate of the issues. You know, there's an old saying, don't tell me what I want to hear, tell me what I need to know.
Yeah.
And that's Michelle Salzman. That's the difference between a politician and a true statesman. She's telling us what we need to hear, not what we need to hear, but she is telling us what we need to know. And I'm very anxious to see her in her fourth and last term as a state representative. And if you had a crystal ball, do you have any plans after that?
Senate.
You like to look at Senate?
Yeah, if I am still in the legislature in 6 months, Senate will probably be my plan. If I'm not, then I will be on to other things.
Well, you've certainly been open and transparent about that too. And I think that's healthy. A lot of politicians would hold off and not disclose. You've been pretty open about this path. And I think the people like it. They know what they can expect. And I think that's everything. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a 3-term, soon to be 4th term state representative to District 1 in the Panhandle of Florida, to the House of Representatives of the state of Florida, Michelle Salzman, here with us today. And we thank you for joining us in the last 60 seconds. Any final thoughts or comments or insight? Oh, contact information, website, and phone number.
Sure. If you have any questions or concerns, you can reach out to me directly. My cell phone number is 850-207-5024. Yes, that's my cell phone number. I put it on all my mailers. It's always out there. I'd rather voters or people ask me directly than go to somebody else and get an answer that's not appropriate. Or if you want to look up some of the accomplishments, you can go to votesalzman.com. That's SALZMAN, votesalzman.com. I have all of my bills that I've sponsored, all the money that I brought back, ways to contact me. And if you want to give to the campaign, you can give there as well.
And I really appreciate personally what you spoke about in the beginning of the show regarding the elimination of the specialized district in Escambia County. If we can get rid of that, that is a perfect example of legislating from the bench, which is absolutely illegal. And doing so would allow every voter in the county to feel they're on the same playing field.
Yes, get some at-large districts going. Let's go.
That's right. That's right. Thank you for joining us here today.
Absolutely. Thank you
it's
for having
always
me,
a
Gene.
pleasure
Thank
to have you. And thank you for joining us here on another episode of Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. See you soon. Hello, fellow patriots. Gene Valentino here. As we approach our 250th anniversary, let's celebrate the spirit that made this nation the greatest country on earth. I'm so proud to offer you our limited edition 1776 to 2026 commemorative hats, a bold reminder of freedom, faith, and the American dream. Whether you're at a rally or on a golf course or just showing your pride every day, this hat says it all. Grab yours today at GeneValentino.com and let freedom ring.